time is just gone 7 minutes to 9 a.m. We continue with the show this morning. Now, here's a question. Every time when we have an election, and one of the arguments that has been posed with regards to justifying voting for the government or voting for the ANC is the government supports Palestine. Now, we've seen this Amnesty International report that has come out stating very, very clearly that Israel apartheid poses a challenge to the Ramaphosa administration's inconsistent policies with regards to apartheid Israel. And we've seen it recently. We've seen the state president together welcoming the new Israeli ambassador to South Africa, posing in photographs, and also looking at the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, DIRCO, and putting together what appears to be a clumsy attempt to justify South Africa's diplomatic ties with Israel. And we joined on the line this morning by none other than executive member of Media Review Network, Dr. Ahmed Haroon Jazbhay. Dr. Ahmed, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome.
Alaikum salam. It's having.
Yes, wonderful that you're able to join us. Now, this is clear, and this has been a matter of concern for a very, very long time, where huge question marks have been raised against the government as far as its policies. Now we see this Amnesty International report come out stating that Israel apartheid poses a challenge to the Ramaphosa administration's inconsistent policies.
Yes, I mean, this report comes literally a few days after, President Ramaphosa accepted the letter of credence from the new Israeli ambassador to South Africa. And whilst, it appears that while this was a mere formality, it appears that the Zionists in South Africa pointed to this to get some cheap, score some cheap PR points. But be that as it may, it does in effect point to sheer, an obvious double standard, that hypocrisy on the part of the South African government to state that they support the Palestinian people in the quest for liberation against Zionism. Yet at the same time, we have full diplomatic relations with Israel. Israel has a full embassy here in South Africa, despite us. The matter of the downgrading of our embassy in Tel Aviv is murky. It's not clear whether although we would run our ambassador, the office in Tel Aviv still continues to operate fully. So it's clear that the South African government lacks imagination. It lacks commitment to the Palestinian people. It wants to have a cake and eat it. It continues to spew the old two-state delusion rhetoric, and I say delusion because there can never be a two-state solution. The Zionist entity is that entity that talks about the distribution of a pizza while simultaneously eating a pizza. So our government is rather naive to say that it still supports the Palestinian people and it wants to play a constructive role is worn out hasbara. It holds no water. It just shows how unimaginative that DIRCO is when it comes to our foreign policy posture with Palestine.
And tomorrow we all can go home free, and all this will finally end. Palestine tomorrow will be free. Palestine tomorrow will be free.
Yes, we need to just apologize for that slight hiccup once again, and I'm sure this load shedding is causing havoc in more ways than one. And we once again linking up with Dr. Ahmed Jazbhay, and we are talking about the government and its inconsistent policies with regards to Israel. Dr. Jazbhay, we need to apologize for that. There was a slight break in communication, but you were talking about the empty rhetoric on the part of the government, and this has been proven in more ways than one, where we have been questioning the fact that apart from the empty rhetoric that we hear from the government coming on talking about Palestine and its support for Palestine, we've seen nothing concrete being done. We've seen nothing tangible being done, and the welcoming of the Israeli envoy was just one issue. But when one looks at what has been happening, the Clover saga that has been playing out in the last few months, so there is just so much that the government needs to explain in trying to justify this relationship with Israel.
Yes, Inayat. Yeah, I think I'm not sure the load shedding has a role to play in this. But anyway, it's as we say, that South African government foreign policy is consistently inconsistent. It appears that it wants to have a cake and eat it. It wants to allow foreign investment by members of the Zionist entity when it comes to Clover. We've seen the devastating impact the Israeli takeover Milko has had. Despite assurances that there would be no job losses, there have been a lot of job losses. There have been, salary reductions, bonuses have not been paid. And these are all considered, all stated that there will be no changes to conditions of service for employees at Clover. And government has been, the silence of government has been rather deafening, if I can put it that way. So the South African government has to move in a direction where, it abandons this two-state rhetoric, this two-state delusion. I mean, civil society organizations have been trying hard to lobby government to abandon this two-state rhetoric, because we cannot move forward with a two-state rhetoric. I said it previously, I'm not sure whether that bit was missed out, but, Israel is that entity that talks about the division of pizza while simultaneously eating the pizza. So we've seen this report from Amnesty International. This proves that the two-state solution is dead, and that although the report does not say that in those words, but it's important that government now, faces up to reality and pushes for a one-state solution. There can be only one-state solution from the river to the sea. And government is unfortunately, government unfortunately pushed for a one-state solution when it came to the situation, but one-state solution in Palestine. So, these double standards, there's sheer hypocrisy and inconsistencies on the part of DIRCO, on the part of presidency, it's just continuing to manifest itself. And it appears that they lack any meaningful desire to move away from the two-state solution when it comes to Palestine.
Yes, Dr. Ahmed, and the facts basically speak for themselves, because there is absolutely nothing left to dispute. And the fact that Human Rights Watch has made the statement and saying that, Israel is practicing apartheid, the Palestinians are the victims of this crime against humanity, and this is what they have been calling out for years. So at this point in time, I mean, this cannot be tolerated. And also in terms of our government, in terms of their behavior, in terms of their responses and actions, that cannot be tolerated anymore.
Now, of course, I mean, it shows, the report even calls for, it was quite a lengthy report, 280 pages, and this is the third such report. Firstly, I think it was Human Rights Watch, then B'Tselem as well, Israel's own human rights organization, referred to Israel as an apartheid state. So, what more evidence does the Ramaphosa administration and our ANC-led government need? But, one thing we must note tonight is that the problem lies in that resolution that was passed in Mangaung in at the last conference. It says that it calls for a downgrading of the embassy. And unfortunately, that is very limiting in the sense that we do not need a downgrade. We need complete severing of ties with the Zionist entity. So the problem lies in that resolution itself. So the government is trying to, use that in a way. I think that was a compromise resolution, but ultimately what we need is a complete severing of ties. The Amnesty report calls for, military sanctions. It calls for, economic sanctions. It calls for banning of goods in the occupied Palestinian territories. So the government needs to, adhere to these, as well as, the resolution, at the tail end of President Obama's presidency, where, the United States, although it abstained from the resolution, I think it's 2246, if I remember correctly, but I stand to be corrected, which stated that, that settlements are flagrant violation of international law. So we've seen UN resolutions, we've seen human rights organization reports, but government is still being stubborn in the sense that it's pushing this whole, drawn out, it's the boring two-state rhetoric. But if I may, I think one of the shortcomings of these reports is that they call for negotiations and so on to end the impasse. One thing, it is important to note that none of these reports support the armed struggle. And that's one of the fallacies and one of the shortcomings of all of these reports. And government, on our part, government must acknowledge that Palestinians have a right to self-determination, they have a right to self-defense, and they have a right to armed struggle. And government must support that right. It's only the Hamas, Islamic Jihad, that are taking up arms against the Zionist entity. I mean, our local Bantustan representative here, Ambassador Hanan Jarar, they oppose the armed resistance, they oppose the right of return of refugees, and many core issues of the struggle. So government needs to start listening to the correct voices, not the Bantustan representatives that frequently come every 4 years to this country and speak nice things and so on. But there can be no two-state solution, and government must acknowledge and support the right to the defense and armed struggle on the part of the Palestinian people. Because negotiations alone are not going to help the path to liberation, as it didn't help the ANC. The armed struggle was a core part of the freedom that eventually came in South Africa.
Well, Dr. Haroon, Jazakallah khairan so much for that and for your time with us this morning. We do appreciate you taking time out, talking to us this morning. We wish you all the best, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam. Shukran for having me.
Dr. Ahmed Haroon Jazbhay joining us this morning, executive member of the Media Review Network, weighing in on the Amnesty report on Israel Apartheid, which is posing a challenge to the Ramaphosa administration and their inconsistent policies towards Israel. The time is just headed for 7 minutes past 9. We are running a bit late with the news. Zahid Jadwat is standing by at the news desk.